All right, welcome, Benson Langat, clinical therapist and running coach, phenomenal running coach, and I'm going to put it out there right now, and a gold medalist of the 2024 Olympics. I'm calling it right now. My friend, I'm so glad to have you onto the Success Mindset podcast again. We've had so many conversations, and just personally, I'm a fan. I'll put it that way. And adding to your title, we need to add public speaker now after you killed the CultureCon stage last year. But for those who don't know you out there, give a little background. Where you're from, how you kind of arrived into this great community, Sioux Falls. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks for having me. When you asked me to do this, I was like, I'm ready for this. And so a little bit about me, born and raised in Kenya. I went to school there, middle school, high school, graduated from high school. I was looking for something to do. So I started running, because I was in the process of kind of trying to stay fit in the process, I was a rugby player in high school, so I was a little bit bigger. So in that process, I found out that they were offering scholarships in the United States. So I started running and, got into this running thing. I wasn't really a runner. But after that, I earned a scholarship to attend a college in Kansas, where I stayed 2 years there, transferred to USD, finished my academics there. I was on my way out of Sioux Falls, and I got a job down at Children's Home Society.
Okay.
And so it was that transition from Kenya to Kansas to USD. That's how I landed in Sioux Falls, as a job at Children's Home Society.
Okay.
And I was just like, I'm going to test it out, see how I'm going to like doing this. And I wanted to give it a month, and a month turned into 2 months. And then later, 2 years later, I'm still having a great time with the kids. And, that's one of the times that for me, it was so transformational, because it's brought me to Sioux Falls, and I stayed in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. About the same climate in Sioux Falls as Kenya, right?
No, it's almost like it's very different. It's very different because it's almost a tropical climate there. It's just always the same. Come in fall, winter days, when it hits 60s, people are cold, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's -9 degrees today. And I'm like, it feels warm because it's no wind, right? But It's just, so big difference, big difference when you think about both sides of the world.
Yeah, that's really cool. One thing with, success mindset, and for a lot of folks, again, it's understanding our own journey, how we arrived, the key contributing factors. But one thing when you're going to go back to when people that 12 to 18 range, kids coming up, law of proximity matters a lot. Like people that in their family and what they aspire for and those type of things. When you were in that range of high school, what kind of factors are, what influences did you have in terms of what were your aspirations at that point in your life? What were you reaching for? If you could have said, what was your biggest ambition at that time? Take us back to Benson High School. What was your dreams and goals and aspirations about that time?
Well, at that time, high school, I remember I was, I worked at the library. I was I was the student representative of, in charge of the library. So, anything students would have issues with or wanted to address, they would come to me, and then I would address the librarian. So in the school, that was just for me, is I would hang around the library so much. So I had so much access to so many books, but I wasn't into reading. It's not what I was into, and so I was just a representative, and so what happened at that time is high school. It wasn't really a lot of options for us. I wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be a pilot, I wanted to be a lawyer. Those three things are the things that you grow up wanting, right? And so then you realize, like, when you graduate out of high school, those things are not realistic to a lot of people. So I had to come to terms that you needed to score very high in high school to be able to attend one of the biggest universities there. You needed to score the higher level to be able to access those things. So for me, high school was an experimental time.
Yeah.
I asked me if I was going to be in the United States. No, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about freshman year, getting done with that. I was thinking about going to Kenyatta University, which is, a big university back home. That was the only thing I was eyeing, And then, so the mindset is very different because you don't think about, I'm going to go be a, professional runner. I want to be a professional, but I was so good at playing rugby. So I was like, maybe this is my way out. And so that was something I was hoping to play for a club there, hopefully play at a college in Kenya.
Yeah. That's big. So, and for me, and I think back, again, I grew up here in Sioux Falls, and again, I didn't know anybody. Same thing, like initially, I wanted to be a basketball player at some point, but I realized, though I'm 6'3", I'm a small point guard, and I'm not that fast. And so again, those dreams weren't realized, and I didn't have friends or family that was close enough. That same type of thing of like dream big. When you think about your journey, what were some of the maybe one or two moments that happened in your life where you challenged you to dream one size bigger, like maybe a little bit more as possible? What were some of those things for you where you started to aspire for a little bit more and say, again, I can do that?
I think about moments where back home, there wasn't a lot to do. So not a lot of things to do for fun, not a lot of, and it just came to me, like my grandfather used to tell me, like, hey, go look after the cattle, go look after the goats. That was a chore, right? But then before that, I would think about my mornings and how that would look like. So I would wake up at 6 a.m. and I would take this, it's called a djembe. It's like a shovel to basically dig. And it's like I would go there for up to 4 hours digging and preparing some area for like putting kale and cabbage and gardening, right? That would be just the thing that I would do. And then I would make bricks out of mud. So I would bring some, basically make it into clay and then put it in some box shelf. I realized that at that moment, like I was working so hard to try to create something that I would sell to just get a lot of income, right? For me, that is the moment that I knew there was a lot in place. Like, what if I did this and I could sell it, get a little bit of money, support myself? At the moment, I mean, you run into disappointments, right? You get into the point where you make those bricks and then it rains and then it washes that. Those are some of the key moments that I remember growing up, and especially after high school, that I had to do those things. And I'm like, well, I think about them now, make me smile. And it's like, wow, that was hard because you have to use your physical body to just like step on those to make the clay a little bit tougher. And then you take it with your hands and put it on a shelvy thing, and then you square it out or put it in a shape, and then you lift it up. Some of them fall out of it's so hard to explain it unless you really see the picture. But moments like that for me were the moments like, yeah, I'm done with high school, but so what now? When you're waiting to join a college, in Kenya, you have like 1.5 years at least to sit out. And I was looking for things to do, and I'm like, those are some of the things. But then I found running, and it's just a thing like, what if I tried this?
Yeah. Just try it, weighing heavy at that time, not having experience of running. And it was my last resort. I'm like, well, why don't I give it a try? What do I have to lose? My uncle said made it to United States through running. My cousins did the same thing. I'm like, that was one of my last resort was running. And so when I knew it was the only way out, I'm like, why don't give it a try? Yeah, why not?
Why not?
One of my favorite questions. What's the longest you ever ran? What's the furthest distance you ever ran at one time?
For practice, I've done up to 27 miles.
Okay.
In one time.
Okay. How far is that? Basically a marathon?
So marathon is 26.2.
Okay.
But I wanted to cross that barrier, but that was the longest I've ran, and I averaged like a 6:12 per mile.
Okay.
For just a training run.
Just a training run. Yeah. Okay. I've heard, and I'm not a runner at all, but I've heard the runner's block, right? And they talk about, usually around mile 18, 19 is what I've heard. Talk about a little bit when, have you encountered that, like when it's like when your body wants to lock up on you, and in that moment, especially even when you're practicing, right? No one else is there. No one's going to know if you quit. Your body's screaming at you. What kind of place do you go into mentally to push through that, to keep going when, again, what does it matter if you quit?
Mm-hmm. It's living in South Dakota on a day like today. It's one of the hardest days to get out because you look at the temperature. It says no. It's impossible, right?
What's the running conditions? Yeah. Don't.
But then you get yourself out there and you keep trying and trying every day, right? To your question about hitting the wall. For me, my first marathon, Twin Cities Marathon, I still have to go back and redo that again. But I was at the place where the first 14 miles of my run was fantastic. I was hitting the jackpot. I was going to play second or third. I was on the money. I was like thinking about, wow, I'm going to get paid today. It's just all that excitement, right? Mile 16 was my wall. Something just happened. Something just happened and said, hey, I was telling myself, I'm feeling good. And then something ran through my shin, and I was like, what is that? It distracted my mind. I couldn't hit mile 18. I was working at that time. It took some time, and then people started passing me. I said, I'll get back at it again. But I told myself I'm not going to quit. So I walked the last 7 miles of longest ever. I mean, I could do that in a heartbeat just to run 6 miles. But that moment, it just destroyed me. It was the longest ever. It was the longest ever because people are passing me, and I'm like, wow, but I finished. I crossed the finish line in 3 hours and 2 minutes. 3 or 2. So 3 hours, 2 minutes, yeah. And then that became my first ever time in a marathon. Wow, I was shooting for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Okay.
So for me, that was the wall that I hit. But then again, I came back and I was like, I need to keep doing that. So I needed to cross the threshold level. And so it's practice. It's practice. It's one of those things that, like you've asked before, what has failure taught you? And it's like, it is a stepping stone to success. And so for me, I came back, went to the drawing board, put the marathon aside a little bit, and practice and practice and practice and practice to get to a point where I could run 27 miles for my long run comfortably. If it felt like I needed to cross that. And so for me, I think about it as a coach and as an athlete, I think about the 18 mile. It is the mindset.
Yeah.
It is the mindset, because once you put that wall in there, it's going to be there. But if you put that wall past 26 miles, it's going to be waiting for you right there. And guess what? You finish at 26.2. That's how I switch my mindset. That's why I said, I tell all my athletes that it's right in the, if you don't practice and practice and practice, that is the wall that you create for yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, really, from a coaching perspective, I look at it as some people may not get to 27 like I do. It takes a lot of time. But it may be the 22 that is the longest long run. But mindset, if you set that as 26.2, you set it, that's the distance. But if you set it as 26.5, the wall is going to be waiting after you finish.
Yeah, that's really good perspective. I think there's two sides of it for me that I hear out of that is, practice gives you the confidence, right, to try. But it's also, I've heard of for those who, break boards like in martial arts, they always talk, you have to visualize past the board, right? With that focus on the board, can't get through the board. So it's like when you can kind of push through. Which is interesting too, because again, once other people kind of come in, whether they success mindset around, I want to be a doctor, lawyer, or build this business, whatever the case is, the moment that you allow other people's opinions into it, it can start to plant those seeds and doubt and those type of things. But I want to chat a little bit. I mean, you've built, you have built a extremely successful running coaching program. Talk a little bit about that, of how you got into it, and what are a few of those keys? Because again, you're finding great success in doing that, what are some of the keys that you think has made you successful building one of the biggest running programs out there?
For me, it was the people who added value to me. My coach, he's in Kenya. He saw me when I was struggling and trying to learn how to run. As much as you think running is just running, just getting out and run, it takes a lot of work. It takes discipline. It takes a lot of patience. And that's the key word, is patience. That he kept saying, Benson, be patient, be patient, be patient. I spent 2.5 years learning how to run. And for me,
that's crazy. If you want to again, I was thinking it's this Jeff for 2.5 years.
Yeah. To get better, right?
Yeah.
And so, because again, if you think about it, you're putting some, I call it running miles in the bank, the running bank. And so for me, I saw that transformation of like running changed my life. It got me to United States. I'm doing a lot of different things, and it just one of those things that really did transform that for me is running. It taught me discipline in a lot of different areas. My eating habits, trying to get better sleep, the choices that you have to pick from. For me, that is something that I saw it had so much value to me. And then in college, I had great success in some coaches who really helped me build me up and kind of just taken me to that one level and put me in a different level. And so with the coaching business, I had an opportunity to work with Grant, who's a patron of 605 Running Company. He was my coach. And, he said, hey, why don't you become a coach? I'm like, you do the job. And it's like, yeah, but really though. So I had, from running and understanding a lot of different things, I had a dream. Like, I want to help people, I want to help people become a coach. I didn't realize that until not long ago. So like, wait a minute. I had this concept. And so Grant and I worked together, and then he left. I ran the coaching business. And since then, I produced multiple state champion athletes in high school. 4 years I've been doing it now. Produced 3 of them in cross country. I produced a lot of high-level athletes and even people reaching their goals. I was doing the math the other day. I'm like 90% of my athletes have achieved their goals. And so for me, I look at it as I wanted to use running as the thing outside everything else that's going on with you and with everything going. If this is gonna be one thing that's gonna help your life be better, it's gonna help you become better for your family, for the community, for your workplace, and everything else.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, you look at it like that. For me, I'm starting to see a lot of kids. And from a mental health perspective, this is a group that is the future. The teenagers, that's the future. That's the future right there. For me, I'm like, hey, one of the things we want to focus on is character. And then running takes care of itself. Because when you're disciplined, I'm not going to work so hard to get you to go running. And that is the future. So looking at our state, we struggle so much with, cross country and track, because it's one of the single sports out there. Like, you have to get up and do it. It's a choice. And if you train someone to be like, this could be a long-term thing that you can do. Again, I look at myself and I'm like, I could have be done running right after college, but now I'm having so much fun with it. And that comfort level, great thing happens after you push through that comfort level. For me, after college, it's like, this is it.
Yeah.
But then I found I found even more pleasure and joy after college, because I'm like, I'm having a great time. So I look at it and I'm like, I want to build something that and continue to help other people find themselves through running.
Yeah, and it pays itself forward, right? If you build once they get on a path of confidence and they can, right, it continues with them. I want to change a little bit just into, obviously, your day job, right, is when being a clinical therapist, right, and especially in today's day and age where you obviously see it every day, how many people are struggling, like really struggling with some real issues. We weren't great as a country going into COVID were even worse coming out of it. As you are engaging with individuals who are struggling with various things, obviously there's lots of barriers and things truly going on from a mental health perspective. But what are those few things that, you try to offer to people to give them a glimmer of hope, or how they can just foundationally start to, find a grasp on building a foundation to start to step into any semblance of aspiring for success?
This last 2-3 years have been very challenging in the mental health field. But when you look at why someone is really seeking help, a lot of it is, well, I have to do it because my parents said I need to, or I have to do it because so-and-so say. But when you have somebody coming in, they come to you with different reasons, right? Traumatic, there's a lot of trauma that you may see that is. So everyone is different. But talking about the success with mental health is, I look at mental health as when you go to the gym and you're trying to gain 5% bicep muscle, right? What do? You repeat, you do reps, focusing on the bicep. Now, I look at mental strength, and I talk about mental strength is you need to gain the mental strength. Gain the muscle. You train to get the mental muscle. That when things are thrown in your way, you're able to handle those things. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is, that is for me a pathway to success, because if you have those skills to be able to handle the things that come your way, you can be able to handle a lot of different things.
Yeah.
When COVID hit, a lot of us were washed away with COVID because we didn't know how to respond. Mm-hmm. Yet if we knew the different ways to be like, life has to go on with this. Life has to, there's a lot of different things that we can do to get around it, right? So a lot of the things that I do is I look at someone and I'm like, I wanna know who that person is. So when I'm giving the services to this person, if I'm driving a Chevy, I don't want to be putting diesel into a Chevy because it won't work, right? So a lot of the time, the pathway to success that I see and I try to apply to myself is, if I know who I am, I know my strengths, then I'm able to focus on those strengths. And that just really, the journey starts right there. So you could add, an example could be, like a path to success is the power of gratitude. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of stress comes from the things that we want, like we have, and we try to figure it out. Stress comes from, I need another one. I need another one. And for that journey, it could start even with gratitude.
Yeah.
Even just the power of think about what is going on right now in the world of COVID and war in Russia, and just the sense of freedom that you can wake up. It starts with the smallest things.
That's real. There's always, it always could be worse, but there's always something to be grateful for. And, and again, Vonnie says oftentimes every day when you wake up, you get a chance and you get a choice. Mm-hmm. It's another chance, your eyes open, just a chance, and then you get a choice. So you've been through Leaders of Tomorrow, continued on through Author of My Life. What are maybe a lesson or two that you feel that has added in your life to, I'm assuming hopefully enhanced your life? What are some of the takeaways that you feel even this last year and a half that you've kind of really adopted, that you see yourself growing on an even higher scale?
A sense of finding my purpose and really being intentional. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because when I started LOT, it was just a class. I was like, well, I'm just going to go to this class. It's about leadership, right? Mm-hmm. It was the total opposite. I found self-awareness, confidence, and just a lot of things. It's like, what are you really doing? Are you trying to be the best version of yourself? All those things are some of the things that it never clicked on my mind. Mm-hmm. But really, those are the takeaways for me. Is finding the journey for me is like, how do I want to be remembered someday?
Yeah.
I like what you always talk about, like if you were to lay on your deathbed right now, if you find yourself in that, what are some of the things that would be running through your mind? And that's something that I think about, and really it kind of paves path to just like, what are some of the things, how you living your life?
Yeah.
And so for me, LOT was amazing experience for me. I wouldn't miss that. I mean, but then the author of my life added value. The concept about, where you plant your seed, and how if you if you put a seed on a table, there's nothing it will do, right? But when you put it on the right environment and nurture, it's gonna grow, right? And so those are some of the things for me, is the value that he added to me is so much more than I would have, I wouldn't have found that anyway.
Yeah.
And I like to, also say, like, I'm reading more books now.
Yeah.
It's something that I get excited to get done with work sometimes. Just go open a book.
Oh, man.
And it's just like something you wouldn't pay me in 2019. You wouldn't pay me $100 to open a book.
Yeah.
So it's just some of those things that I've started realizing that, and it's like, wow, this is something you get from that. So
it's great because, again, so many people, they find themselves victim to circumstances or environment, but there's always something you can do, right? And to me, if I could, I've heard other people say it, but reading is my superpower, and anyone could adopt that. Like, I read, actually this year I'm on pace to try to read. Actually, I think you'll probably beat me because it sounds like you're off to a big start, but I'm at 12 books so far, here in 2 months. But it's like the information just helps your mind grow so much. But you talk about purpose, man. One of the things I want you to share with the world is what's really important in life. And you got to share with me, I think, something everyone should aspire for. So you got to go back and buy your parents a home. I don't want to give more than that. Unpack that for us, because when you share that, I mean, I got the goosebumps. Again, I'm aspiring to do for my parents, but you got to live out a dream at a young age to see the impact. So talk about, again, I mean, even going back to, to actually try to get a photo up of, your home prior to, which, again, people don't understand what you came from and what you were able to do. So talk about the journey of building your parents a home and what that meant to you.
So I grew up in a humble background. My mom and dad, amazing people. They had what they had. And so for me, that's the foundation of growing up, is like, it was humble. Some days we would, I have 2 other siblings, my younger sister and my younger brother. Life was good, but it wasn't, like what you would think. And so we grew up in a small house, and it was just 1 bedroom and a living room, and that's pretty much it. And so
give them the details, like running water. I mean,
so no running water, no electricity. Basically, life that is like no screen, or basically I use so this little, it's a little tiny can that you could drill in it, put a wig in it, and put some paraffin, it's what we call it, and then light. That thing could give the most disgusting smell, but that's what we had to read, use for reading, and that thing would light up the whole room, and it's just out of a small thing, right? But for you to really focus on reading, you have to get close to it, and just, so what you're doing is you're getting the smell, right? I remember it was, I laugh at it now, because I mean, and it's there's 2 sides of the world, right? Like seeing that from a United States perspective, that's different. But that's the saddest part, is there's still parts of the country that's still going through that. And it's just like, I was fortunate enough, like, to come here and help my family live a better life. So one thing that really, when I was coming to United States, December 2nd, 2009, I was sitting with my dad and my mom and my uncle at the airport, at Nairobi International Airport. And my mom, it was time to go. And so my mom, I was kind of waiting for, like, hey, someone to give me some pocket money, right? And I was just kind of quiet. I didn't want to ask because they had done so much. My uncles had really helped buy ticket and all the other things. But my mom reached out to her purse and she was looking everywhere. And I was like, and pulled out 2,000 shillings, which is like $18. You know, having to watch her do that, I'm like, I was disturbed. I'm like, and she gave me that and she was still searching and she said, we don't have anything else. Mm-hmm. I mean, having to just think about that, and it's just like a process that I'm like, I got on a plane, and what I was worried about is, are they going to make it back home? They got to go back 6 hours, and lucky enough, my uncles, you know, they were helping out, and so for me, when I first got to United States, it was my goal. I know they had sacrificed so much, they sold property to get me here, and so fast forward. You know, worked many jobs. I was a security at night some days. I worked at crazy, you know, a lot of different things, trying to kind of build up, right? Trying to support them, help educate my brother and my sister to get through education while I was still a student here and all that. And then when that was done, I wanted to do something special for my parents. And I started, when I graduated with my master's in 2020, and at that time also, I had finished place 17 at the Boston Marathon, the virtual Boston Marathon. I thought about what would be the best graduation gift that my parents didn't even get a chance to come watch me cross the stage, which was my dream, but COVID and everything is just kind of put everything on hold. But I wanted to show my parents that I had graduated. Mm-hmm. You know, I wanted to show them. And so I thought about an idea, and I worked, you know, found a plan, and it's like, I want this house for my parents, and started building that house. I found some people to work on that and everything else. And so for me, that was what mattered the most, is like, I want my family to see what I did. And so I went back in, you know, December last year, 2021, for 2 weeks. And during that time, I wanted to see the finishing of the house and just to see them. And so when they saw the house coming together, it was just so much joy, because it's just, to them, that was something they never thought would ever happen.
Mm-hmm. And they thought it was your house.
You thought, yeah. And so it was, a surprise to them. Yeah. And so when they found that, like the smallest things. Well, for me, gratitude is one of the biggest things. And that's something I learned from my mom and dad. It's just like the smallest things that do matter. Mm-hmm. It's just like, be grateful for that. And mm-hmm. so over the time that I've been here, for me, it's just a small job that I had. Always appreciated that, because it's just like, it helps me make a difference for them. And so when I went there, it was one of the most, the time that I had never had a chance to sit around a dining table with my family. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the one thing. I took one picture and I'm like, man, this is always been my dream. Mm-hmm. And to see them now in a modern house, they get to open the tap water, and indoor, like they have everything. And I did a video call with my parents, when I was still back in the States, and it's like, hey, check out my refrigerator. And there was a goal for me. It wasn't bragging. It's like, check out my refrigerator. Mm-hmm. You see that? Look at, this is where I cook and everything. They were like, whoa, that's crazy. Now I video called them and they're doing the same thing. And it's just, for me, it's just, throughout this journey, I didn't do it alone. I look at them like, every employer that ever employed me, every run that I ran is just like part of that, kept going into helping build that. And for me, it is just, I look at that and I'm like, I was supposed to be a son and figure out my life, but I wanted to give my family a life that they used to dream to ever wanting to have.
Yeah, and that's me again. I was like, that's success, my friend. Like when you can do, again, life, so many people are chasing money and chasing the things, but like to give that gift and to make that difference, if nothing else, mm-hmm. right? If nothing else, and you're still in your early 30s, like if nothing else, that's success. And that's so important. It's beyond just the achievements and those things. It's the relationships and the people that you can make a difference, giving back. And then now knowing, again, okay, there's going to be a next thing now. And so, again, I'm excited about the impact you're making on this community and so many different folks. Last one, again, we have our Cube conversation card, so I've been asking a guest a surprise question, so we'll kind of go on the deck here and get a last question for you here, my friend. Okay. In your opinion, what makes a good life, and how are you currently aligning with this?
That's a really good question. What makes a good life is knowing your purpose. You shared a key point one time about a lot of us, there's less than 10% who actually know where they're going in this life. Mm-hmm. A good life is knowing that purpose in life. And we're so lost in a lot of different things. We start chasing a lot of things. We don't stop and look back and say, how am I actually living my life? Mm-hmm. And where am I really going? Because, I look at myself and I'm like, I don't want to hit 40s. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, midlife crisis. Mm-hmm. I want to be like, I feel good. When I look back, I'm like, I've come so far, but I know where I'm going. And so for me, what I'm doing differently is I'm trying to pull someone. So talk about being a multiplier. I want to pull someone else. I've had some athletes that I work with that say, I want to be a coach, young athletes. I want to be a coach. And I'm like, good. That is something that I'm trying to do. And from a personal standpoint, I'm reading more books. And I'm like, I want to know, I'm reading Good to Great right now. I just shared that with you. And that aspect of it is my goal is to make a difference. My goal is to aspire others to be better. My goal is to make the world a better place. And I want to do that by, through running. I want to make that through my work life and really all the things that I do. And CultureCon gave me one of those bigger spaces now. I get a chance to speak at some small groups and here and there, and you get people asking you good questions, and I take those questions and I'm like, how am I doing that in my own life? So it's helping me in the path of really, what am I doing now to answer that question?
I love it, man. That's good stuff. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Again, keep leading the way, keep setting the pace. Again, I'm privileged to call you my friend and excited to what we're going to continue to do to impact this great community.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for adding so much value to me. You've become someone, for me, like you picked me up from, you didn't even know me, but got me to a place where I'm like, wow, I never thought about it. But, thank you for your organization and the amazing things you do in the community.
Appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks.